Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the warm welcome. And thanks for joining us this afternoon. And to your point, no guesswork here. We want to share with you what we've learned over the last few decades of helping organizations transform and help organizations innovate with emerging technology. So you can sidestep some of the pitfalls that we've seen, some of the blind spots that we've seen, and we'll share a few of those. Quick introduction, because I think it's helpful for context. I'm Martina, Hodges-Schell. My background is actually in user-centered design, a human-centered innovation. I bring that lens to helping organizations innovate with emerging technology, but also transform their organizations to develop those innovation capabilities in-house. And gosh, I've been working with Shahzia now for over a decade, and we've been integrating how AI and data science and human-centered innovation come together to help organizations transform.
And I'm, of course, the buy one, get one free here, and wearing the same shirt, so I really regret my wardrobe decisions this morning. But I've been doing AI before AI became a big thing, so I'm here to convince you that please don't give up. It is a great tool, and there are ways to sidestep the hurdles. I've been working in academia doing AI research, and then, of course, sold my soul to the corporate world as soon as they started paying big bucks for AI. And from the vantage point of seeing Microsoft deliver AI projects across the globe, I've seen patterns emerge, and I've seen also see them make the same mistakes that could be easily avoided. So this is why we're here, to share our experience.
Amazing. So I'm sure most of you have seen the report that MIT brought out a few weeks ago. I'm sure we're not the first ones at this conference to quote this. MIT has done research and brought out some insights to say that at the moment, only 5% of organizations are seeing a material return on investment on their Gen AI investment. That means 95% of efforts are not seeing any material uptake in creating value with AI yet. And what they reference as one of the main challenges is it is not well integrated into their workflows yet. It's still quite brittle, and it's not integrated well into the day-to-day operations of the organization. That is a challenge. And we were curious because we've seen hundreds of organizations trying to embrace AI, trying to innovate with it, create new projects with it, but also transform with it. And we were curious, what are the success numbers from what we've seen? And we've actually noted 1 in 100 is successful with AI that's actually going through to being adopted, right? Being delivered and adopted by the intended audience, and creating some impactful value when the organization is has a traditional approach to software development. And we've been working together for some time to help organizations with modern ways of software development. And in that context, we've seen more of a 95% success rate. So we're really curious, when it comes to your own company, your own organization, what kind of success rate would you want to go for? The 1% success or the more 95% success? I think it's a good question. And we want to illustrate this. Actually, really interesting how I can... Let me see how I can run this video quickly. Excellent. It works. I can't speed it up, so it's just a few moments. We want to, with this viral TikTok challenge, show you this counterintuitive notion of, if you start with the hard thing first, it feels like it's going to be slower. And we see that sort of belief prevailing in most organizations. But what we see here time and time again is if you start with the hard thing first, you're actually going to get to your successful outcome more quickly. And what do we mean by the hard thing first? It's really that discomfort organizations have with acknowledging the uncertainty in, are we solving the right problem, and the uncertain paths of how are we going to get to a solution in that space. But what most organizations do is, instead of embracing the uncertainty and this discomfort, is we'll skip forward to doing something, anything. We'll just build something. An idea we have, we'll skip forward past that discomfort to, we know how to manage building something, so we'll just go and create that. But it's not showing us how... It's not helping us understand whether we're building the right thing first or whether we're just rushing to build something to get us out of this, what's called an action bias. We all have it, it's a human thing. It helps us manage this discomfort of, I don't know, but I know if I just do something, it'll feel better. But what we see most organizations do in succumbing to this pressure and to this action bias is we hear a lot of these things like, oh, wow, but there's pressure to start building something. There is, the engineers are ready, we just need to do something. We just need to manage outputs because outputs feel like we're making progress rather than outcomes. So that consequence to avoiding this discomfort is that we're really focusing on building up risk over time because we're not sure that we're actually solving the right problem with the right solution, and that we might be building the wrong thing altogether. And we try to illustrate what it looks like with managing your risk profile differently. If you start in the first, in the top line, if you're acknowledging that you can't predict the future, we had that in the keynote this morning, but you can mitigate the risk of trying to figure out in small experiments and in assumption testing what the better way forward is. You can keep the risk low. Seeing that sort of zigzag line at the very top there, it's the risk profile of a small experiment. We've learned something, we're moving forward with a decision based on that learning, rather than saying, I know what the answer is, I'm the expert. We've learned that we're worse at, as an expert to predict the future than we are as predicting someone else's future. We have no idea, no context about. Here is an approach to help tackle it's an unknown thing, we can't predict it, we can manage the uncertainty. Whereas the second line is this bias for action approach. We'll just build it, it'll feel good, but we can manage the output of that thing. And sooner or later, we tend to hit a wall. This is the 1% adoption rate we're talking about, and the 1% success rate, because you're building risk over time, more and more of it, till at some point there is a gap between what you've made and what would have been the right, a plausible or successful solution in this space. Which brings us to our first blind spot. We'll share a few of those today. So doing the hard thing first will slow you down.
Sorry, go back. So here we have a real example. Martina's told you about why it matters to do the hard thing first. That is really to sit in that uncertain spot of really saying, I don't know what I'm solving for, or I don't know what my customers want. AI can help me, but will it really help my business as well? So this example is a project that we did a few years ago, is fair to say, for a national grocery company. They wanted to build a same-day grocery delivery app. This is from a while back, but the success of this has been so good that it still is a thing, and it's still a product by this company till today. And what we built, especially the AI feature, I'll show you on the right-hand side, you're looking at the search function. Very simple. Most apps have a search function. But when you look at the word pasta that the user is searching for, and you look at all the products that are being shown, none of them actually contain the word pasta. Simple, but makes your results very relevant when you design a model that really thinks about the problem from a user's lens. What it's showing is stuff like tortellini, ravioli. None of this the user has actually inputted. Now, and this is what we really mean by doing the hard thing first. Behind the scenes, the hard thing, well, there are some people in the room today that did those hard things, is really running lean experiments to understand, is this relevant for the user? I, as the data scientist back then, I didn't have to do anything magical or complicated. But what that meant was that we went from exploration to production in just 2.5 months. And I would definitely argue that doing the hard thing first does not slow you down. And in fact, it brought such measurable, immediate impacts. We had a 4% increase in average add to basket from search. And if that were not enough, and this is, I still take pride in this because it's, even though it's from 2017, it's one of the greatest moments of my life is watching the Channel 4 show. Well, it was called Super Shoppers, and they compared a competitor, same sort of app, and they're looking specifically at the search functionality. Simple, but it does have an impact on the adoption rate, on your user experience, on your business impact. And here you can see Italian salad leads to a less relevant, you might argue, John West tuna salad, while our cheddar cheese is being praised for throwing up more relevant results. So I think the point is, do the hard thing first, really understand and look at the problem from a user's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think this.
So what we can take away for our own transformation here is 2 things. First of all, doing that hard thing first will not necessarily slow you down. It will hopefully get you to the right answer more quickly and more effectively. And beware of that action bias, because it can push you towards measuring for output and measuring success in output rather than in outcomes. Which brings us to our second blind spot. And we're talking about transformation and AI product. Building an AI product internally is not the same thing as transforming as an organization.
So this is another example, and especially with AI being the talk of the town. I mean, we knew AI was the talk of the town when I think Tom Cruise was battling an AI in his recent movie. I knew that AI had arrived for sure. And what we see, and of course, I think you might have already seen this meme circulate where the CEO goes, "We need AI. Yeah, when do we need it? Now. What do? We don't know." So, and usually that, what do? We find that the pattern that emerges is that people then start building bespoke AI solutions with the ideas that they have at hand at that point in time. So this example is, again, a real-life example, a project that recently was delivered and closed. This was for a global leader in market research, and they are a big, big company, and their ambition was equally big. They wanted to become cloud first, AI powered for marketing and data analytics. And again, they came to the table, we want an AI organization. What do? Let's build multiple AI solutions. The solution that I really want to show you today is the automatic survey creator app. This is one of their core functions that they do. And the ambition was, LLMs can do everything, so can it just create a questionnaire for us with one single button? That would have been great, but as we dove into the technical discovery, we realized, actually no, it's a little bit more cumbersome 3-step process that you see on the right-hand side. You have to upload, then there's a review, and there's a draft, and that is just one portion of the workflow. And bear in mind, this costs over $500,000, right, for this company to build this pilot. When it was put in front of the users, of course, the names are anonymized. This is just a sample. Polite agreement that, yes, this is good, this is great. But the person I'm circling here, Cara, whose name's been anonymized, was the most experienced member of this team. And she said, great, but not good enough for me to abandon my existing workflow. Why would I switch to this? Bear in mind, $500,000 has gone by now. So I think this is where, again, we come back to this idea of, should this really have been built? Could we have done the hard thing first and done more, lean experiments and really thought it through about the adoption piece, which remains that last mile challenge?
And the question really is what helps solve that adoption problem? And as you mentioned already, thinking about it not just from our internal lenses, but looking at the user lens as well, the customer lens, and the question of what problem are we actually solving for the customer, and how does what we're trying to do compare to what they're doing today? To really understand that, what's the cost of switching? What's the cost of adoption here? Of course, you need to balance that also with internal lenses of, is this a viable business, right? Are we going out of business if we're making this thing? Absolutely important. Equally important, is it technically feasible? And also, from an AI lens, how can that enhance the job to be done? Only a few questions here. Of course, there's plenty more questions to be answered, but we wanted to illustrate the different lenses you need to look the question from. So briefly, the takeaways, half an hour is not a long time to go through these. First of all, don't get stuck in that piloting hell, really sort of figuring out what is the path through to adoption, really like how do your end users go, how are they going to adopt this thing rather than just build it and hope. And then really thinking about, from the user's lens, what is the most valuable problem we can solve here? How do we best solve that? How is it solved today to get to being in the 95% rather than in the 1% bucket of success? Brings us to our third blind spot already, and we're shifting gears a little bit here. This is a organizational transformation thing where it's also about the people and not the technology. Third blind spot is everyone internally is intrinsically motivated to do the right thing for the business. And in reality, we're all human with our agendas, our emotions, our egos, and our hopes for what we're trying to achieve for ourselves as well.
So this has been a hard one lesson for both Martina and I. For those of you who have been handed the baton of organizational transformation, or you're staring down that funnel, I think it's very easy to not think about the people side, only because it is, again, uncertain. So the example I'm about to share, another real-life example, is for a large financial institute that they really wanted to transform and pivot to a whole new business model, bring new next-gen solutions for data, and all sorts of fancy new products to the market. This was truly at scale, a multi-million-dollar, multi-year project, multiple complex work streams. There, I think at one point there's more than 600 people on this project that they have been assigned to sort this problem. And when Martina and I got pulled to one of the work streams, it was really interesting to see that after 18 months, there was a pattern of delays and missed opportunities that had emerged. And as we looked closer, we found that every time the LT got together, it was ineffective in decision-making because they were just not aligned. And this is where our brilliant team had this idea about, let's take a pause, let's just reset with the LT, because this otherwise ends up in this vicious circle of whose is the blame game, basically. I think we might all recognize it in some form in our organizations, but it's just taking that time for our team to then go and have one-to-one conversations with the LT, really jot down their hopes and fears and ambitions. And to me, what was most fantastic and almost reassuring bit was that each one of those leaders wanted the program to succeed. They wanted that AI transformation. But yes, they also had their fears of what does this mean? What does it mean for me and my team in this new redesigned future? So once we sort of got all of that out in front of everyone, we could then go back and have joint workshops about what it really means to dig into the fundamentals of being a modern engineering organization. Really is about bringing a certain mindset. If you do not bring that mindset of experimentation and really saying, clarity will come with action, you will get stuck in this vicious loop of ineffective decision-making, because everyone can go, I reckon, but that's not it. We do not know the answers. So I think that was a big lesson to learn in terms of, as you start doing AI transformation for your organization, certainly it's front and center for my mind going into next projects.
Absolutely, and having worked with organizations on their transformation for some time, I believe it's really important to take a step back. I heard someone earlier talk about, value stream mapping. Really step back and look at the whole operating model of the organization as a system, and look at how are all the individual parts of it, the ways of working, the culture, the capabilities, how are we making decisions, what does governance look like, what does measuring success look like, and what do the collaboration structures look like, together with what are our shared goals for this transformation and what are our shared measures of success for the transformation. It's a ton to juggle all at once. So we created a canvas just to be able to map all that out and see where are the friction points, where are the unintended influences and constriction points, because often they influence our behavior, our mindset, and don't get to the intended outcomes. I just wanted to give one quick example from the story you were sharing. So it was interesting, that prevailing notion of we're actually rewarding the expert in the room. That means, it's me having the right answer, me being seen as the person who knows best and doesn't need to ask questions, doesn't need to test assumptions, gets reinforced as a behavior. So we're really not seeing that behavior change of curiosity, asking questions, being open-minded about not knowing what the right outcome is right now. And also it hinders collaboration. That really necessitates a culture shift inside the organization, and also necessitates the question of how do we align how we measure our individual contribution. And that's often decided somewhere entirely different in the org, maybe in HR, maybe in another success function. So really looking at how do all of these possibly unrelated seeming parts of a humongous system play together and play together well. So the takeaways for this, for your own transformation, really critical right from the start: align your leaders around those shared goals. Get them to learn in an embodied way. What are these shared principles of whatever modern approaches you're going for? They need to embody them as much as the teams that are going to work this way. And also shared accountability for the whole group. It can't be on the shoulders of that one transformation leader to bring everyone along on the journey. And the second one, as I just said, transformation really requires looking at the whole system, at your whole operating model, to make sure that all of these points are aligned and working well together. Brings us to our fourth blind spot. Gen AI feels magic and we can do cool things, and vibe coding is everyone's favorite thing to do right now. Surely building bespoke is now really cheap and straightforward.
I think this has been a theme. Certainly, we've heard from Song earlier about the risks of putting it into production, from Rory as well earlier on, any of the technical tracks. This has been the theme of this conference. So it's really interesting to hear people say, can't we just vibe code it? We just build a demo. Look what I've done over the weekend. Isn't this amazing? But it may be true. I do agree that building a demo and building a POC has become easier than ever. But I think we're also vastly underestimating the effort to build something that is production ready. And I'm sure Song will clarify that building something that's safe is even more expensive. And of course, poor Expedia here, I'm sure they're not the only ones, but releasing a chatbot that can then instruct people to make a Molotov cocktail is not ideal for the brand. And Song, I'm sure they wish they had you. And here's an example of just the sheer number of steps that was taken in a live project that was pushed to production. And also just to bear in mind that the security question overall has shifted. It isn't just about keeping your AI, your infrastructure, your tech stack, your data safe, but it's also protecting the LLM from misbehaving, from being maliciously directed to do things that it's not supposed to. So on the left-hand side, you see the 4-step process. It sort of belies its cost, I think, just because they're just simple 4 steps, but there was a human tester evaluation, there's automated evaluation. Rory talked about using LLM as a judge, you might have heard of that. Targeted deterministic evaluation, just to make sure that the known unknowns are also evaluated, and red teaming, the most expensive of all. And those of you who have been in software engineering know you're familiar with this term, but it's a very up-and-coming and popular term for AI, the AI red teaming. And again, the process is the same. Stress testing to see if your AI is behaving the way it should. Simple, but expensive. So I think that's really the lesson here. So over to you, Martina.
Absolutely. So it's still costly, perhaps in different ways, to build something bespoke that is production ready. It's also a snapshot in time. I'm sure next year we'll have a different perspective on which parts are high effort and what is becoming easier. But overall, really, our message here is start lean and, again, with small experiments, move forward to figure out what the right answer is. And one final story for a little bit of inspiration when it comes to going lean, when it comes to starting with small experiments. Take a leaf out of the book of the great inventors. This is from my summer holidays in Nova Scotia, and it's a photo inside Alexander Graham Bell's house of one of his tetrahedral what do we call these things? Kites, tetrahedral kites, and small paper prototype of one of those. Absolutely fascinating, and really inspired me to remember how cool it is to paper prototype something small that would eventually become the first powered flight in the British Empire. Alexander Graham Bell, not just the inventor of the telephone, but later also the father of flight in Canada. Just very briefly, I just grabbed a couple of the many, many photos of the endless iterations and experiments he's run. I thought it was a beautiful illustration of lean experimentation. Have a hypothesis, think about the smallest thing you can do to learn that. Doesn't even have to be high tech. Just figure out what's the smallest, quickest thing you can do to improve your learning loop, so you can learn faster and faster, to know what, to help inform what the right direction is. And just a few more. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant to go from that little paper triangle to manned flight in the matter of a few years. Have a little bit of inspiration there. Quick summary of these 4 blind spots. So make sure that you do, you embrace the hard thing and the uncertainty and figure out and help it accelerate your success, actually. Building new AI systems is not the same as org transformation, so how do you do both well if you want to enable those capabilities in your company? The human element, not everyone's intrinsically motivated to do the right thing by the group, so bring the people together, align them around shared goals and responsibilities. And the final one is that magic of Gen AI is exciting, right? It gives us lots of possibilities. Let's also be mindful of what the real cost is of bringing those ideas to market. Now, we've only had time for 4 of many, many blind spots that we've seen over the years that we've been doing this work. We're collecting them in a new book, and we would love to invite you on that journey with us. So if you have a story to share of your AI transformation, we would love to hear it. If you have questions, if you'd like some help with your transformation, we're here for a chat as well. But most of all, yeah, we'd love to learn and grow together. Thank you so much.